Hey everybody, it's Will. I wanted to let you know that I appeared on News Nation this morning to talk about the overwhelming increase in farmer bankruptcies this year in the United States of America. Already this year, since President Trump took office, we've had more farmer bankruptcies under Section 12 than we had in the entire year in 2024. This is being caused by a lot of the policies that President Trump passed, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to these bankruptcies. Now, a lot of you may not know that Chapter 12 bankruptcy was actually originally created for farmers and fishermen in order for them to reorganize debt when they ran into difficult financial times. That's happening a lot lately due to very specific policies on the part of the president. First, you have the tariffs. The tariffs have been on again and off again for quite some time. I just read this morning and it blew my mind that there have been over 132 different iterations of the Trump tariff policy that's been put out there to the American public and the rest of the world since his inception when he first came into office. Think about that. 130 plus versions of the tariff plan for this country. You ask yourself the question, how can any other country or how can any commodity organization in the United States of America plan around that lack of planning? It's very, very difficult to do. It's caused other countries to throw tariffs onto the United States of America, which have cost us overseas markets, not only in row crops, but also in beef. And the problem is getting worse and worse. The second issue that we face in row cropping is that the break-even price right now for a commodity like corn is around $4 a bushel. And that price of corn has been dipping down below and a little bit above that per bushel price needed to break even for quite some time now. As a matter of fact, just a few weeks ago, the price of corn was somewhere around $3.80 a bushel, which was below break even. Right now, it's anywhere from $4.05 to $4.25, depending on how far you look out to December. But the bottom line is this. There aren't going to be massive profits on row crops this year due to the president's tariff policies, leading to a reduction in the amount of markets out there for commodities like corn, soybeans, etc. And this again is adding pressures to farmers, especially row crop farmers that depend on credit in order to do their farming every year. The other issue driving up cost is the increased energy cost in this country. Now, if you haven't done so, I'm going to encourage you to go over to the page of my good friend, Mr. Global, and look at some of his latest work on energy costs and energy prices. He's made a prediction which looks like it's going to become true that's really frightening. And that is in the very near future, energy prices, your utility bill that you pay at your home or on your farm could be greater than the cost of your mortgage. And that's really, really a frightening scenario for farmers across the country. As these costs increase and as markets disappear and our ability to sell our commodities around the world decrease, it's setting up a perfect storm for bankruptcies in this country. The final thing I want to tell you is that it's no different when a farmer files for Chapter 12 reorganization than it is if a small business does it or an individual does it. The bottom line is a farmer comes out of that bankruptcy with destroyed or credit that's been diminished quite a bit. And in the farming industry, just like with many small businesses and larger businesses, where you need credit to operate, to buy the inputs that you need to produce the commodities that you're later going to sell, the difference between good credit and bad credit can mean several points in interest rates and the increased amount of money that you've got to put down at the beginning or the amount you have to collateralize in order to get a loan. This could mean you have to put more and more acreage up or more and more equipment up just to get the operating capital that you need to put crops in the ground or to put cattle in the field. So this is a really dark cloud that's building over agriculture right now as a direct result of of President Trump's agricultural policies. The other thing I want to tell you, and we can't forget this because I know that a lot of you who follow me and who are going to see this video are mental health advocates as well. Anytime we see a significant increase in farmer bankruptcies like we're seeing right now, we also see a significant increase in farmer unalivings. As the grandson of someone who went down that path, I can tell you that it impacts families for years and years to come. Anyway, that's the breakdown. That's what I shared on News Nation today. I hope you'll go check out the clip. And if you want to change policy in America, get better rural policy, better policy for agriculture, education, and healthcare, Join us here on the Back 40 to fight the good fight. Go to our website, the Back 40 Official, all spelled out.com. Join to get our newsletter and join to get updated information. We're going to events all over the country. We've been to Missouri. We've been to Texas. We've been to Illinois. We've been to Kansas. We've been to Oklahoma. We've been to Arkansas, and we've been to Iowa. And we've got requests from all over the country. We're going to be up near St. Louis just later this week on Saturday. We're going to be in Perry, Oklahoma, and speaking to students at Oklahoma State University in August. It's really a great place to be if you want to impact change in rural America. And I'm asking you today to take that leap of faith and step out there and join. Have a great day, everybody.
So I just saw a video of a farmer in Florida who states that Donald Trump is the best president in his lifetime and that he supports Ron DeSantis 100%. But he's begging these migrant workers, these undocumented workers, to not leave because he's going bankrupt. All these farmers are going bankrupt. All these contractors are going bankrupt because everybody's left. Because this law that they just passed makes it illegal. Like if I'm working with someone who's undocumented and I'm giving them a ride home and get pulled over, I can get arrested. Not just can they get sent back, they can arrest me. And then the farmers are trying to say, oh, it's been misread and it's been lied to in the press and don't believe it. They're panicking big time. They have fucked around and they are in the find out stage. And I just think it is it's beautiful. It's delicious. It's just chef's kiss. Just seeing how this farmer panic and seeing him trying to talk to, he'd say something and then the interpreter would repeat it. And the things this guy was saying are not the kind of things that are going to keep undocumented workers here. There's plenty of work for them wherever they want to go. There are a lot of jobs that Americans don't want to do that undocumented workers can get. And there are a lot of places where they're appreciated instead of persecuted. So I just think it's hilarious that they're finding out now that there's going to be some serious consequences to this. And wait till you find out what tomatoes are going to cost in 6 months. RT Gargiulo has a huge tomato. Most of the tomatoes in the United States are grown in Southwest Florida. And they have a huge tomato operation there. And they don't have any workers. And it's going to be bad. There's literally strawberries and things like that rotting on the vine or on the plant. They can't get anyone to come and work. They got what's coming to them. And I just think it's beautiful. I hope it bankrupts them. I hope it bankrupts every goddamn one of them. Every single right-wing rich guy that supported all this hateful stuff, supported all this anti-trans stuff in this fight with Disney. I'm just loving this. And I'm loving, it's going to be great because in about 6 months, this is really going to hit. And that's just when Ron DeSantis is going to be really trying to hit the campaign trail. Enjoy your finding out, Ron. You're going to find out a lot.
For years, Black Americans warned that mass deportations could create serious labor shortages in American agriculture. Those warnings were dismissed by some MAGA supporters. Now, as farmers across parts of the country struggle to find enough workers, the conversation has changed. Some Florida MAGA farmers are expressing frustration over labor shortages, and many Black Americans online are reminding them how they want them, but they ignored the warnings. So let's talk about it.
There's a whole lot of white people who are now upset that they voted for Trump. So I just want to point out this lesson and thing we do in the Black community where we say all skin folk and kin folk. Y'all voted for that man because he's white and you didn't want to see a Black woman become the president. And now you see all skin folk and kin folk.
So I want to talk about this article really quick because it's all starting to make so much sense right now. This author and journalist was having lunch with friends. There was a white guy and he's married to a Black lady and they were talking politics. And he says that farmers weren't worried about Trump deporting migrants because, wait for it, they thought because unemployment was so high for Black people that these Black people would run back to the fields and do the jobs that the migrants were doing when they got deported. So she asked, like, where'd you get that information from? White farmer TikTok or MAGA Facebook memes? Like, where'd you get this information from? And her and the wife basically started giving him information, letting him know unemployment is only 6.8% for African Americans, and 93% of Black people are currently working. Got so caught up in what they were hearing at Fox News and other places, thinking black jobs, immigrants are taking black jobs, that they just assumed they'd get rid of the immigrants and Black people would take the immigrants' jobs. Sir, our ancestors did not march, die, and fight for civil rights so we could go back to the fields? Like, what? But shout out to the Latino immigrant population that have mastered that labor with skill and stamina. This country doesn't even appreciate it enough. Oh, and by the way, when they do try to hire Americans, Black or white, to do those jobs, most of them don't even last half a day. They just ghost them without even picking up their paychecks. True story. So y'all, tell me, do you really believe that they thought Black people were planning to replace immigrants in that labor force if they got deported? Because I need to know who was smoking that logic.
Hello, Americans who like to eat. I'm Linda, and I want to talk about empty grocery shelves. They are coming, and sooner than we think. There's a 3,000 per day immigrant detention quota. 40% of farm workers in the United States are undocumented. You do the math. Farms are an excellent place to find undocumented immigrants to detain and deport, depleting the workforce. And now, those who haven't been rounded up are afraid to show up. Let's look at just one state, Texas. According to farmers, this issue has been affecting their farms for a couple of weeks, but overnight, it bottomed out. On several Texas farms, nearly 100% of farm workers aren't showing up. So what does that mean for you? Remember Trump's comment about having $2 instead of 30? Cows are milked 3 times a day. No workers, no milk, and some very unhappy cows. What if your grocery store, instead of getting 30 gallons of milk, gets 2? 28 families will not be able to buy milk. Now extrapolate that among produce that instead of being harvested is rotting on the vine. Texas is one of the top 10 producers of 40 major commodities. It is the 4th largest agriculture producer in the nation and 2nd in animal products. And it's not just cows not being milked and produce rotting on the vine. 1 in 7 Texans works in an agriculture-related job. If farms stop working, those jobs are affected. Workers not earning money aren't paying taxes. And yes, undocumented workers pay taxes. Without money coming in, they will cut back on things like restaurants and small businesses, movie theaters, wherever they spend their discretionary income. Last week, Trump ordered a halt to immigration enforcement at farms. But it may already be too late to solve the current problem. The lack of workers now mean farms won't hit full production this year. And if they lose planting now, there is nothing to harvest later. Yet, despite Trump's assurances, a few days after his statement, the administration resumed the raids. Vance says the administration plans to continue clearing the country of undocumented immigrants. Quote, we're enforcing everywhere. In other words, you ought to voluntarily go back and come through the proper channels, unquote. That can literally take years. And frankly, it doesn't protect you from being deported. In the meantime, the question remains, how long are you willing to go without food? Bye, Americans. Have a nice day.
So President Sunny D promised to fix the job market by deporting 11 million undocumented workers. Like it was a new binge series, ICE, Special Victims of Common Sense. Megatron told Black voters, Mexicans are taking your jobs. Like we were all gonna add day laborer to our resumes by Monday morning. But guess what? 2025 just hit a record. More farm bankruptcies in the first quarter than all of 2024 combined. Farmers are begging for help. And Commander Coppertone, he sent ICE back out, even stricter. because clearly the problem was too many workers keeping the economy alive. Turns out crops don't pick themselves, restaurants don't staff themselves, and black folks, they aren't lining up to break their backs for $10 an hour with no benefits just because Trump ran out of scapegoats. They thought they could swap immigrants for job-correless inner-city youth, the same ones they underfund, over-police, and call thugs on TV. This was never about jobs. It was about villains, about vibes. Really, it was all about votes. But now, capitalism's on line one, and it wants its workers back.
Check out how Trump's policies are destroying these red state farmers who voted for him, and we're going to be right back.
Now, I've never been as worried as I am now about whether or not my kids and grandkids will be able to carry on.
He said, I love you, Mr. Trump. I need to see the fruit of your love.
5 of my customers have committed. That's how serious that this is.
And what it costs for us to farm is astronomical now.
I farm with paid-for equipment. All my tractors are 50 years old, and I can't hardly make this deal work. I think the tariffs are the ice cream on the cake of a perfect storm.
After a horrible year last year where most farmers in Arkansas Delta lost money, this year's going to be worse.
So my son will not be the second generation on our farm.
We're going to lose 25 or 30% of the farmers in this country if they don't do something. It has to be done, and it's not just here. It's everywhere.
Now, a lot of my liberal followers are understandably, justifiably like, well, F around and find out. But that's a little too simple for my journalistic standards. There's something deeper going on here. Because if you have a historical understanding of how propaganda works on the human mind, I think everybody who's getting messed over by these Trump policies in red states who voted for him needs to start by suing right-wing media companies for radicalizing them into doing things that are against their best interests and echo chambering them out of the information that could have them more critical about his policies. I'll reiterate, if you ain't got the bandwidth to feel nothing for these people after what they done, I feel you. But low-key, high-key, this is tragic, yo. Because even as late as May, a survey by the Purdue company of like 400 farmers showed that 70% of them still believe that Trump's tariff is going to have some kind of positive benefit for them. Remember that slew of executive orders that Donald Trump was just signing earlier on in the year? Well, it caused so much bureaucratic instability that it made the USDA pause funding for over 30,000 farmers in the United States. That was strike one. Strike two for the farmers was when Doge came in and gutted USAID. Everybody was like, oh, that's just a front for the CIA across the world. Maybe, but also it created automatic buyers all across the world for American-grown wheat and corn and anything that could bridge the gap for starvation. That's gone. Strike three was the deportations. These farmers literally voted for Trump to steal their workers and wonder why ain't no work getting done when all of these compounding factors are crushing them. Strike four, which is more than you're supposed to have, is what? The dude said it. The tariffs. He said it's the icing on the cake. We tried to tell y'all that it's Americans who pay the tariffs. Y'all didn't listen, so listen to these farmers. You know what's ironic? A lot of these farmers were dead silent or complicit in black farmers getting screwed over for decades by not only their peers, but by the USDA. So bad that they had to win lawsuit after lawsuit in the billions of dollars to get claims and damages done. And still the USDA was slow with paying them out. Had they not been so racist, they'd have had a larger coalition to argue for what they need. And what's even deeper is that a lot of these farmers' ancestors were given this land in the Homesteading Act of 1862, when freshly stolen land from Native Americans was given to European peasants for pennies on the dollar. We're talking about 1/10 of the U.S. landmass. The term chickens coming home to roost is a farming colloquialism that applies here with a ruthless poetic irony. I can't even really get myself to celebrate over this because I'm looking at how the sins of the father cascade down to the generations, how these farmers inherited not only land, but a culture from their forebearers that allowed them to be prime targets for propaganda like this. The only positive way that I could look at this is possibly a new beginning in disguise. Because if we're going to have an America that works for everybody, it's going to take these folks getting disappointed in this way to let this all burn down metaphorically speaking, and plant new seeds for the future. That's just my take on it. What y'all feel? My name is Theo E.J. Wilson. Like, follow, and
All year long, we have been telling MAGAs that if you deport everyone here illegally, we're not going to have people to work on the farms and it's going to destroy the economy. And they provide the ridiculous response of Democrats are for slave labor. No, we don't want to crash the economy. And here we are seeing farmers and Republicans pointing out that if we deport everybody working on the farms, it will crash the economy. Maybe it's time for common sense immigration reform where we provide a path to citizenship for the hardworking people who've been here for decades, living clean lives, raising their families, and paying taxes.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, we have, 50, 70, 80,000 illegals that are on final orders of removal already in Florida at a minimum, right? And so, we would love to be able to get that cadence going very quickly to where we burn through that expeditiously. Then some of the others that are still going through some of the process, we want to be part of helping supplement that process with our personnel to be able to move that back quickly. But I mean, if you look at the numbers, I mean, obviously the deportations that have happened nationwide so far, and ICE has been understaffed, is not scratching the surface of what would need to be done to get to where you have the largest mass deportation in history and where you're even just addressing the Biden people, right? So you got to increase that tempo. You have a limited amount of time to do it. And I think we've got to assume, we've got these 4 years under the Trump administration to really get the job done. So my hope is that we have a very strong cadence coming out of here. If the cadence is strong and it justifies us going up Northeast Florida and establishing a footprint at Camp Blanding, we will do that. But for us, the reason why we're in this is because we want this tied to helping DHS remove these folks. That, to us, is the critical element that we want to see done. And then I think, quite frankly, the voters want to see done.
Family owned, over 4,000 acres of tomato farm across Florida and California. Yep. Sadly, his crops aren't looking too good. All those tomatoes rotting, Nobody's there to pick the crops. And with Trump tariffs, well, they ain't got nothing left to do, y'all, but to mow that shit down. He gotta mow all that shit down. Yep. Ain't got nobody there to pick them goddamn crops. Do I feel bad? No. Because that's what he voted for. He voted for Trump. A Trumper. All that shit wasted. All those goddamn tomatoes gone to garbage. They wasted. All because of that vote for Trump.
Meanwhile, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis visited Alligator Alcatraz this morning to defend the controversial migrant detention center. The governor also announced deportation flights out of that facility are underway. CBS News Miami's Morgan Reiner has our coverage.
The governor says that they've officially started flying immigrants out of Alligator Alcatraz and out of the country, and he said to expect that to ramp up. The Department of Emergency Management shuttled buses full of journalists inside of Alligator Alcatraz.
I'm pleased to report that those flights out of Alligator Alcatraz by DHS have begun.
Where his message and everyone else's standing up next to him was clear. You better leave the country if you're here illegally.
And if there's any illegal immigrant listening to my voice right now, self-deport. Use the app. We will get you home. Do not come here because you will be removed.
There have been concerns over treatment of immigrants, like the fact that attorneys have not been able to access their clients here.
We had some technology issues. We have now worked those things out, and we should be starting that on Monday.
Or living conditions.
Hot meal service 3 times a day. Not gray turkey, by the way. Full medical care, including 24/7 clinic and pharmacy. Indoor and outdoor recreational space. Laundry, legal, and clergy services. Air-conditioned detention housing units.
And while they say they have it all, we didn't get to see it today. You can see the governor's plane right behind me, and where I'm standing, that's where he spoke to the media. So the media asked him, in the name of transparency, why weren't we allowed inside of the actual facilities?
This is not a spectacle, okay? You don't get to go into other facilities willy-nilly either. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. I think they have a job to do here.
I also asked the governor where these immigrants are being deported to, places like El Salvador or back to their country of origin.
That's a question for DHS. As I said, they've got processes that they go through. They can do a direct deportation from here. They can do to one of the hubs, and then the hub can take them. And I know that they have used El Salvador. I don't know that anyone from here has gone there yet.
We asked the governor about so many other topics, like their plan if there's a hurricane. I even asked if the immigrants have bug spray. We will have more coverage for you starting at 5 p.m.
For decades, agriculture has depended on a workforce willingly to perform physically demanding jobs under difficult conditions. Many economists, growers, and industry groups warned that large-scale immigration enforcement could leave farms short of workers. The message was simple. If thousands of experienced agricultural workers disappear, somebody has to replace them. Many assumed unemployed Black Americans would simply fill those jobs. Others questioned whether the wages and conditions were attractive enough. Now many farmers say they are struggling to harvest crops before they spoil. Farm owners report difficulties finding enough seasonal workers. Some have raised wages, others have reduced production, some are calling on lawmakers for help. The reality has become more complicated than political campaign slogans. Growing food requires experienced labor, and replacing an entire workforce overnight isn't easy. Across social media, many Black Americans say they are not surprised. Some argue that for generations, Black workers were expected to perform the hardest labor while receiving low wages and little respect. Many say their communities worked too hard for too long to be expected to return to low-paying jobs simply because labor is now scarce. The assumptions that once immigrant workers were deported, unemployed Black Americans would naturally fill those agricultural jobs. Many Black Americans pushed back by asking, why should they return to jobs that have historically been associated with low wages, harsh conditions, and limited opportunities? For generations, Black Americans worked Americans' field first through slavery, then sharecropping, and later in many of the country's lowest paid agricultural jobs. Many say their communities fought for decades to gain access to better education, different careers, and broader economic opportunities. So when labor shortages emerged, many rejected the idea that Black workers would automatically step in simply because other workers were no longer available. Instead, many argue that if farms want to attract more domestic workers, regardless of race, then they should offer higher wages, better working conditions, and stable career opportunities. The labor shortage is not simply about finding people to work, but is about whether the jobs provided will pay them. Many Black people have careers, and some are business owners. This debate isn't only about farming, it's about wages, working condition, immigration, economy policy, and who should perform some of America's most demanding jobs. Employers should significantly improve pay and condition if they want to attract more domestic workers, but Black people have jobs. I think immigration reform is necessary to maintain a stable agricultural workforce. And remember, food crops does not harvest itself. It requires humans to do the hard work. This story has become about much more than politics. It's about the real-world consequences of policy decision and how they affect workers, businesses, and consumers alike. The discussion continues over how to balance border enforcement, economic needs, and fair treatment of workers. What do you think? Were the labor shortages warnings underestimated, or is there another solution that can address both workforce needs and immigration concerns? If you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation respectful and focused on these issues. Thank you for watching.